Elizabeth, Catherine Ann, Mary Beth. My sisters and I had first names that depicted our Irish Catholic halves, but the priest couldn't get past our last name, Moskowitz. Isn't there anyone else? He asked our CCD teacher, the ghost of Italy haunting his New York accent. Katie and Eileen are the only ones who could actually read the Bible passages, the CCD teacher whispered. We can't have the Moskowitz girls do the First Communion readings. Eastchester was full of Italian Catholics who had emigrated from Italy by way of the Bronx, with surnames ending in vowels and enviously thick black hair and olive skin. We couldn't afford to live in Scarsdale, where Moskowitzes were a dime a dozen. Not to mention, Catholic girls with Jewish last names wouldn't fit in there either. My father didn't think twice about agreeing to raise his children Catholic so he could give my mom a church wedding. After my grandfather's sisters and mother died in a concentration camp in Hungary while he was safely ensconced in medical school, survivor's guilt caused his faith to seep out of him. My father forgot all the Hebrew words he had memorized and closed the door on his own Jewish life after his bar mitzvah. My mother spent our childhood exploring alternative faiths. We went to meditation classes and bought chunks of crystals that promised to open our chakras and maybe even help with my asthma. Our house came with a cement Virgin Mary statue in the front yard, which is why you probably thought it was the Bronx. Now I get it. After 12 years of Catholic school, my mom was too superstitious to throw out a statue of the Blessed Mother. But our backyard was filled with round-bellied Buddhas and Ganesh, the elephant-headed deity. We lived a life far more suited to New Paltz than southern Westchester. But that would be too far of a commute for my father, who was a New Rochelle fire captain. The priest always knew who missed church. My mother said he was just keeping track of the collection envelopes. If the priest asks why you weren't there, tell him we go to Granddad's church in Tarrytown, my mother told Katie and I when my parents didn't feel like dropping us off. Katie nodded and ran off to play with her Cabbage Patch dolls. But I was certain that lying to a priest would land me in hell. A few weeks later, the priest pulled me aside and asked, Eileen, why haven't you and your sisters been at church? What's worse, getting grounded or eternal damnation? I blurted out, because my mother doesn't want to get up in the morning to take us. The priest headed down to my sister Katie's classroom next and asked the same question. The answer slid off her tongue. Father, we go to our granddad's church every Sunday. When we swapped stories in our rusted Chevy Blazer that day, I got in trouble for selling my sister out. My father worked overtime at the firehouse to get us gifts, but he never got into having a Christmas tree. He would drag the artificial tree up from the basement and assemble the color-coded branches while swearing under his breath. Then he would disappear while my sisters and I hung the ornaments with my mom. He did, however, make the best challah bread French toast every Christmas morning. When I asked my father why we didn't celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas like my friend who got 8 days of gifts and a visit from the North Pole, he told me that Jewish people don't believe in Jesus. You can't be half Jewish, he said. It's a religion, not a nationality. You can't celebrate Jesus' birthday one week and be Jewish the next. So there I was, a Catholic girl with a Jewish name. Until years later, when I married and took my husband's name, Palma, and we moved away from New York. Slowly, 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 my half-Jewish self slipped away. Bank tellers no longer wished me happy Hanukkah. Everyone knew me as a Catholic wife and mother. That's when I realized my father was wrong. I was half Jewish. And 7 years ago, when we moved back to Westchester, I opened my Facebook profile as Eileen Moskowitz Palma and became whole again.